coming to you live via Facebook streaming, YouTube streaming, and also via Skype. Each one of you is welcome to this live streaming from our studios in Trinidad. You are connected to from wherever you are. Sutras of Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, more on Sutra 111. 111. The Sutras of Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, as narrated by Shiva to his consort Devi, were originally in Sanskrit language. This is almost a 5,000 years old treaty. That time, English was not the language. It was Sanskrit. Thereafter, because in the beginning, Sanskrit was the language of common usage. Even the ordinary people spoke Sanskrit language. It is very deep and very comprehensive. There is a particular novel written by a play written by one of the poets during the time of a king. I do not recall his name. So the story goes on. He is going for a stroll. There he sees a common man, a woodcutter, carrying the load of wood on his head. And it happened before that. During the hunting, an arrow is shot at him, his upper lip is cut off. In a language, each part of the body corresponds to a particular sound. Like some sounds comes out from the throat center, some comes out from the deeper level. So the sound of pa, fa comes from the top lip. If top lip is cut off, then the sound of pa, pa, the two lips join together, then the upper lip gets activated and the sound p, fa comes in. Look at it very carefully. So this is in Sanskrit grammar known as pavarg and favarg. So when his top lip is cut off, he cannot use these two sounds, pa and fa. So the play continues and the author does not make him use these two words. So he sees the poor woodcutter coming with a load of, so he says in Sanskrit language, the weight seems to be too much for you. Weight seems to be, I do not recall at the moment the correct words, correct sentence. So the common man who was a woodcutter, he replies in Sanskrit language, I am not bemused by the weight, I am not burdened by the weight of the bundle of the wood on my head, as I am disturbed by the improper use of the Sanskrit language by a person like you. So it was a common language, everyone understood that. Thereafter, it was the Kashmiri enlightened Pandit Lakshmanju translated the Sutras of Vigyan Bhairav Tantra in English language, and these form the last chapter pages of Zen Flesh, Zen Bones by Paul Reps. So this is one of the translation that is available. The language is the same, but the translator is different. So it is not necessary the translator may be an enlightened, as happened in case of Lakshmanju. He was a Pandit, so he knew the Sanskrit language. He was not considered as a scholar, and at the same time he was enlightened. Just as when Omar Khayyam Rubais were translated, it was in 1857, Gerald Fitzgerald translated it for the first time in English language. Thereafter, he was a scholar, he learned Sanskrit language, yet still his translations would not be as accurate. They are the best introduction to the Western community. So when one day I was speaking to my uncle, the Sufi Omkarnath, about the translation of Gerald Fitzgerald, he said that translation is done by a scholar, not by a master. And if you happen to read the original Persian language, you will see the difference. The same thing happens with Rumi. Rumi also used Persian language. So I told him, I do not know the language, but I know the language of the silence. If you know the language of the silence, then even if you are reading the translation by Fitzgerald of Umar Khayyam's Rubai, or the various translations of Jalaluddin Rumi, you will be able to penetrate in the deeper realm of the meaning, deeper realm of those words. So he had no answer for that, because all languages evolved out of silence. The moment one experiences the silence within, that state of silence, when all faces disappear, you discover your original face. When all sounds disappear, only the soundlessness remains. In that state, whatever you say is authentic. There is another translation of these Sutras of Vigyan Bhairav Tantra that is available on the media, which has been quoted by the person who had asked for the explanation of Sutra 111. When I looked at it, the sutra which was referred by the person, every sutra in that translation begins with sweet-hearted one. This is a Western interpretation, how we address a beloved. Oh, sweet-hearted one, oh, honeyed one. These kind of the addresses we use. It says, sweet-hearted one, meditate on knowing and not knowing. Meditate on knowing and not knowing, existing and non-existing, then leave both aside, that you may be. Knowing and not knowing. This is the two aspects of it, of the same coin, duality. Knowing and not knowing, existing and not existing, being and not being. And when the focus is on transcendence beyond the duality, you have a coin in your hand. It has two sides, head and tail. Everything, life is dualistic. And the process of transformation is to go beyond the duality. There is a man, there is a woman. Man and woman are dualistic. When you go beyond the man and woman, you reach that which is eternal, which is neither masculine nor feminine, or it is beyond the two. The coin that you have, its half side is, if have to make it in a coin to be imagined as a cylinder or a tunnel, it has two sides. One, from one side you can enter and you come out of the other, or you can enter from the other side and you come out from the first side. So the entrance can become the exit, and exit can become entrance, depending on from which side you are coming. And when you go beyond that, in order to gain something in life, like you are using the coin, whether it is a coin or it is a dollar bill, everything has two sides. You may be holding the dollar with a face on top or the reverse on top. It does not matter. What it matters, when you want to get something, you have to give away that the duality. The coin that is dualistic, the dollar bill is dualistic, whatsoever it is, only then you can exchange it for something that you want. So when you use the coin of duality, the knowing and not knowing. Knowing is one thing. There are certain things you know, certain things you do not know. And beyond that is that which can never be known, that which can never be known, because that is part of you. You are beyond the known and unknown. You are not masculine or feminine. You are the neutralization of the two. When the male and female interact with one another, ovum and sperm, then a body is formed. And then the body is the outer shell which houses the consciousness. Without the body, consciousness cannot express itself. You are sitting down. Before I began this talk, there was silence. If there was a disturbance in my mind, it's not that I was preparing my talk, or as happens that whenever we have to give a talk or a lecture, we prepare it beforehand. We look different things. When something is evolving out of your deeper silence, you don't need any preparation. While I was in the office, I was looking at the video of the India's lunar mission, which is supposed to land in a few days' time. So it says that it has 3 parts of it. 3 parts: the propulsion module, the lander module, and the rover. How can this be possible? How the three? What is the interrelationship between the three? When you are living in your city, there are many food trucks. Food trucks. They leave their home, their offices. A truck is coming in. Truck comes to the location where it has to set up its shop. So it comes there, parks first, and then it starts setting up. Certain things he has brought, certain things he has. Then he has things packaged, some things in the freezer, something in that. So he makes a complete setup. And when he has made the setup, then he puts on the stove, he turns on this, turns on all that thing. Then he starts taking out the ingredients. He takes out the bread, takes out the burgers, and he starts preparing it. So three things: the truck, the equipment, certain things, the sauce, different sauces are made in advance and brought there. And then he does not bring the sandwiches made up there. So three parts. The truck. So propulsion module is the taxi, the truck that carries the Vikram, the lander and the rover to the moon. It is 384,400 kilometers distance from the earth. So truck covers a certain distance and takes you in the orbit of the moon, from where the process of landing will begin. So the truck moves, carries it from its office or factory or wherever it is, with the things packed up, the amount of, because it is Sunday, so more people will be coming in, or the weekdays. So all the necessary fuel, ingredients, all that may be necessary, brings that. It starts moving from its destination, from its source to its destination. That is, and reaches the orbit where it has to park. It parks there. The people start preparing themselves. When they are in the truck, they do not put on their chef's jacket or all those. So when they come, they start preparing themselves, start preparing, they turning on the stoves, ovens and everything. Then they open the front door, the counter, and the customers starts coming. So the lunar mission is composed of three parts. The first part is the taxi, the propulsion module that takes all the ingredients to the surface of the moon, and it continues to orbit in the continues to move in orbit of the moon. Then the lander module lands on the surface of the moon. So when you reach there, you do not open up your bread and everything until everything is set up. So when the lander lands on the surface of the moon and it sees everything is okay, then it opens the door. And opens the door, the chefs starts appearing in front of the customers. So then the rover, the module which has to come out on the surface of the moon and continue doing its research, it will come out. So three parts of it. So in the same way, if you have attained to a state of no thought, then whatsoever you look into, you will start getting the response. So when I saw the two, I will explain the first that was referred by the person who wanted the explanation. Oh, sweet-hearted one, this is a Western influence, how you address your spouse. You do not call it by the name. You call it, oh, sweet-hearted one, or honey tongue, or by any other way that you want to address her. Then comes what you have to do. Meditate. Meditate on knowing and not knowing. So when you are meditating on both head and tail, two sides of the coin, knowing and unknowing, then what will happen? You will realize that both are part of one reality. Either you know or you do not know. So if you know, you express it. If you do not know, then you try to learn to know, to understand it. But there is something which is beyond the knowing and knowing. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, Sutra 14, Matra sparshashtu kaunteya sitoshna samadukha. He uses two words, sheath and ocean, heat and cold. One who is equipoised in heat and cold both, he is awakened, he is enlightened, he is a yogi. Either you are divided in man or a woman, but man is incomplete without a woman and woman is incomplete without a man. Even if you go into the act of sex, both play an equal part, important role in the process of the act that we know as sex. It's not that male is more important or the female is important. When you are giving your coin and the dollar, if the face side of the dollar bill got defaced, will the person whom you want to give will accept that? No, he will not. He will look into whether it can be accepted or not. If the coin that you have, it is one side is head and the other side is tail. If the tail side gets smoothened, will the person take that coin? He will say, refuse to take that. He will look into if he can exchange it, but for the better reason, he will refuse to take and ask for another one. So you have to go beyond that. So neither knowing is good nor not knowing is good. Neither male is enough nor female is enough. It is the confluence, it is the union of the two, and when they are in harmony with one another, whatever role male has to perform, whatever role female has to perform, when they perform their roles efficiently, then the act of sex is completed and one gets the bliss out of it, the orgasm. So the first, meditate on knowing and not knowing, existing and not existing. This is another example of duality. It is not needed. Krishna does not give too many examples of duality. He simply says, Matra sparshashtu kaunteya sitoshna samadukha. He only uses the heat and cold. One example is more than enough. It is either there is heat or cold. If it is heat, turn on your heating system. If it is heat, then turn on your air conditioner system. If it is cold, turn on your heating system. So depending on what size you are facing, you turn on the other in order to be equanimity. So equanimity comes when you are beyond the duality of male and female, duality of knowing and not knowing, existing and not existing. And when you are beyond the two, not existing, then put both aside and you may be. So Krishna says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya, sitoshna samdukha. Sam means equanimity. When you are beyond the knowing and not knowing, beyond the existing and not existing. So what is that state? That state is a state of equanimity. That state is a state of meditativeness. That state is a state of inner harmony. Then you don't need anything. You are simply beyond that. And then you may be. May be. It is said, Sutra says may be. So you don't want to leave one. You want to keep the head and give away the tail. It is impossible. You want to give away the masculine, the male aspect, and female aspect, and you expect the bliss out of the interaction between the two. Now the sutras, that has been the translation by Lakshmanju, this consciousness exists as each being and nothing else exists. So in knowing there is a consciousness that is known as knowing consciousness. There is a consciousness not knowing. There is a consciousness in existing, and there is a consciousness in not existing. Consciousness exists in each one of you. Whether it is still packed, if you give a gift to two people, the gift is contained in each packet. You give it to different people. Some are anxious, they open it up right away. The other, they do not open it. So consciousness is the very core of everything, every being, every act. Knowing is a consciousness, not knowing is a consciousness, existing is a conscious state of consciousness, not existing is a state of consciousness. So you are divided between the duality. This consciousness exists as each being. So being, man, woman, objects and beings, everything and nothing else exists. So everything is incorporated in that. First of all, you have to realize that consciousness exists as each being. You have to realize that consciousness. So why do you have to meditate in that sutra? It is said, meditate on knowing. So when you meditate on knowing and not knowing, that means you come to this conclusion. You come to this realization that consciousness exists as knowing, as not knowing also. So meditation is the process through which you come to the realization that which is. So when it says meditate on knowing and not knowing, you come to the conclusion that consciousness exists as knowing and not knowing both. Then again it says existing and not existing. When you were existing, did the consciousness exist? And when you did not exist, consciousness did not exist. The electric current continues to flow through the channel. If you turn off the bulb, does it mean electric current is not flowing? Or when you turn on the electricity, the switch, only then it is flowing? It means it is, if the electric current is not there in the channel, will turning on the switch will turn on the bulb, the light? No. It has to be flowing there. It is invisible. When Buddha was dying and he said, today by the end of the day, I will be no more. Or when the Japanese mystic Isun said, by the sunset, I'll be no more. So when you turn off the bulb, switch off the bulb, does electricity gone disappears? No, it exists, but it is invisible to you. You see only the manifestation. You see the manifestation of consciousness. When consciousness manifests as body, mind and intellect, then you come to know. The moment it recedes, it is in a non-existential form. But it is existing. When Buddha says that where else will I go? This atmosphere in your room, there is an atmosphere in your room, the air. It is bound by the four walls. The doors are closed because you have a central heating or the air conditioner system on. The moment the walls are removed, will this atmosphere that is there in the room will disappear, or it will not be existing? It will be non-existence for you, but it will form of the cosmos. When the soul leaves the body, it becomes the part of the cosmic existence. It becomes the part of totality. When the drop merges in the ocean, drop is no more existing as drop, but is existing as ocean. Its existence is oceanic, not anymore individualistic as a drop. So this atmosphere within this room becomes non-existence to you. Does it mean it does not exist? It exists as part of the great outer total existence. When you open the door of the room, which are connected to the lobby or living room or any other area, the airflow becomes easier. So existence and non-existence both are part of the consciousness. When consciousness manifests, it becomes known. Before the talk began, all that I am speaking was in a form that you could not understand. If I had simply remained silent and given you a tawajjo, as Sufis call, or the energy had flowed in and there was no expression, would you be able to understand what I have said? You understood this only, it got expressed, it manifested. So everything I cannot learn. So there comes in, when Upanishads were being narrated, when the prayer of the Upanishad is, teach me that, knowing which everything becomes known. And that state is enlightenment. That state is enlightenment when you are a part of the existence. You are no more within the narrow boundaries. Bhadram karnebhi shrunuyam deva. May I hear that which is to be heard, but we hear things which we do not need to hear. We see things which we do not need to see. There is an outer vision, outer hearing, outer senses and inner senses. So this whole prayer focuses on the inner. When you begin to see, that is to be seen. When you begin, you can see the body, you can see what is spoken, what is going on within. What is beyond this body, you cannot see it. So that state, beyond the existence and non-existence, you have to meditate. And when you meditate, you reach to the state of beyond the existence and non-existence, you attain to the state of transcendence. So then the conclusion comes, consciousness exists as each being, whether it is manifest or unmanifest, whether it is known or unknown. When you are seeing the person, he has all the senses, he can see, he can hear, he can touch, he can speak. But what he speaks will depend on the body, mind and intellect realm. So consciousness exists as each being beyond. You can express it in a harmony or as a curse. And simply consciousness exists as each being and nothing else exists. This is the conclusion. But there is a process, so I would put it, the two together. The sweet-hearted one, meditate on knowing and unknowing and not knowing, so that you can go beyond the duality of knowing and not knowing. Then you will know only consciousness exists as each being. Go meditate on existing and non-existing. Only then you will come to know. You attain to the state of transcendence and you will come to know that consciousness exists as each being. Then it says, they put aside. Then leave both aside. The duality, the heat and cold, the male-female. When you are getting the orgasm, you forget about male and female. When a child comes, you forget about the male and female. It is transcendence. When ovum and sperm interact with one another, this is transcendence between you as a male and she as a female. Then leave both aside and you may be. Consciousness exists as each being and nothing else exists. When nothing else exists, what else exists? Consciousness. That is the being. Then you may be. You are only when you are a consciousness. You may have many faces. You have a face in front of your worker. You have a face in front of your wife. You have a face in front of your beloved. You may have a face in front of your boss. You have different faces. When all these faces merge into one another, then you attain to the state which is faceless. That is what Zen calls it, the real face. Your face is comprised of your conditionings. You have a Hindu face. Your ways and means are Hindu, Christian, or Muslim. These are all your faces, conditionings. These are mask faces. Hindu is a mask face. Christian is a mask face. Islam is a mask face. When you go beyond these, then you come to know the real face. Only then the journey of transcendence begins. You are starting to do the spiritual path, but you are still continuing your morning daily prayers. Nothing is wrong in doing that. If you are aware, you are eating food every day, but the food is the gross energy. Beyond the food is the subtle energy. That is what helps you. The gross energy, it helps in the maintenance of the body and the emotions, but the subtle energy, that is, in Sanskrit language, there is the sex energy, which is semen. When this gross energy transcends beyond the cells, it becomes ojas. Ojas is the subtlest energy or the transcendence of semen, of the sex energy, which is the radiance. Out of that. So you have to understand this, then only you exist as transcendence. Either you call it, then leave both asides, that you may be, this translation says, then leave both asides and you may be. But this certitude, this is not certitude. It simply says that it may be possible, it may not be possible. But the sutras translated by Lakshmanju, enlightened master, consciousness exists as each being assertive, is not saying anything else. Shiva is assertive. Consciousness exists as each being and nothing else exists. The process, this other translation, is a process through which you come to know that consciousness exists as each being, and when you go beyond that, you will realize that nothing else exists. So this is for the more on this, as the person had asked, a particular translation of the sutras. So I am trying to make this available to anyone. It will take a little while. When it is available, we will make it available to you. The various translations. I am still trying to see if I could discover the Sanskrit, but that may not be necessary because most of the people will not be able to, not familiar with the language. So only this much for this morning. Until we meet again, take care and do have a pleasant day.